Having considered all of the evidence, including evidence gathered of deaths and attacks by dingoes since the death of Azaria, I am satisfied to beyond the required standard of the following matters. Mr and Mrs Chamberlain and their 3 children, Aidan, Reagan and Azaria, arrived at Uluru, generally then known as Ayers Rock, on Saturday the 16th of August 1980. Setting up their tent in the top camping area on the east side of the rock. They were not alone, with 6 families in the camping area on the night of the 17th of August: the Wests, the Dawsons, the Habeys, the Lows and the Whitakers. Mrs Chamberlain was nursing Azaria, speaking to Mr and Mrs Lowe. Mrs Chamberlain then took Azaria and Aidan back to their tent area. She placed a sleeping Azaria in a bassinet in the rear of the tent and then went to get a tin of baked beans from their car for Aidan. Shortly after Mrs Chamberlain returned to the barbecue, Mrs Lowe heard a baby cry from the tent. Mrs Chamberlain went immediately to check on Azaria and moments later cried out either "That dog's got my baby" or my God, a dingo has got my baby." At around 8:25 p.m, Mr Derek Roth, the ranger in charge of the area, arrived. He, along with Constable Morris, who arrived shortly thereafter, organised a search party consisting of some 250 to 300 people who searched the areas east, north and south of the tent until about 3 a.m. in the morning. Constable Morris also saw drag marks in that area, as well as tracks close to the rear of the tent. Mr Roth and Mr Nuyu Minyintiri tracked a drag mark on the crest of a sand dune to the east of the tent. In Mr Minyintiri's expert opinion, the tracks of a dingo that he saw showed it walked as though it had some load on it. When I was tracking the dingo, I knew, or I thought, that it was carrying that baby for sure. In considering now all of the evidence, I am satisfied that the evidence is sufficiently adequate, clear, cogent and exact, and that the evidence excludes all other reasonable possibilities to find that what occurred on the 17th of August 1980 was that shortly after Mrs Chamberlain placed Azaria in the tent, a dingo or dingoes entered the tent, took Azaria and carried and dragged her from the immediate area. Mrs Chamberlain, upon being alerted to Azaria's cry, returned to the tent area to see a dingo near the tent. Raising a cry which alerted others, Mrs Chamberlain then ran for a short distance after the dingo back to the tent, confirming that Azaria was missing. Azaria Chamberlain died at Uluru, then known as Ayers Rock, on the 17th of August 1980. The cause of her death was as the result of being attacked and taken by a dingo. Mrs Chamberlain Crichton, Mr Chamberlain, Aidan and your extended families, please accept my sincere sympathy on the death of your special and loved daughter and sister, Azaria. I'm so sorry for your loss. Time does not remove the pain and sadness of the death of a child. At the same time that I have released these findings, I have made a copy available to the Office of Births, Deaths and Marriages. Should you now wish to attend their office directly behind the court building, a certificate of death will be available to each of you, which reflects the findings that I have made today.